Welcome to Town of Salem, and its sequel, Town of Salem 2. Despite the fact that it occupies a relatively niche genre of the gaming community, they've had their staying power. A lot of that has to do with YouTubers and streamers spreading the good word to a wider audience. And it has a lot to offer. Murder, mystery, logic. You can be the detective, or you could be the killer, or someone with their own goal. There is so much variety, so many things to do, so many sights to see, and you can choose whichever game you want. Competitive, chaotic, or casual. So a new player looking at what their favorite gamer is playing might think, wow, this looks fun, I want to try it myself. So they download the free version of the game, maybe on the finally re-released mobile version, and oh boy. They are about to experience a world of hell. Town of Salem and its sequel do not have a normal learning curve. Very often in these videos with big YouTubers, a lot of the comments just say outright, "This looks fun, but I have no idea what's going on." Town of Salem and its sequel do not have a normal learning curve. With most games, the learning curve looks something like, or it looks like this. Notice what they both have in common? They're both very easy to pick up, and it makes sense. You want your player to not have a bad first impression. With Town of Salem, it's more like this. You see this area right here? You have to figure out how to talk, you have to figure out how your abilities work and how your abilities interact with the abilities of other roles. It takes a long time, and eventually you start picking up on things quite quickly once you start learning the social aspect of social deduction. And then you hit the point of diminishing returns. Once you realize there's only so much you can do in a 15-player game. Some games are literally unwinnable, no matter how good you are. But the bit I want to focus on is the beginning. The initial climb to figuring out the game can be brutal on new players. Now, that's not to say that the developers didn't try to implement systems to aid new players. In Town of Salem 1, in the before time, in the long, long ago, there was a tutorial for new players, and it was mandatory. It taught you basic things, like how to interact and how to use your abilities. Were you being aided by the serial killer? It got removed, with Blank Media Games releasing a statement that said it did not have the desired effect. But luckily for us, BMG have plans to replace it. I'm sure that'll come out any day now. Even without a tutorial, at the very least though, Town of Salem 1 has a kind of training program in the form of Classic, where common questions get answered, like how do I whisper and how do I report someone. But once you've played it enough, well, you start to realize that it's not being filled with the best players. I know Classic gets memed a lot. There's a reason the phrase "go back to classic" is used as an insult so harshly. But it fails. Even if there's nothing to indicate that's where you should go if you're new, aside from it literally being the first option you can pick. And if you do join a different game mode and mess up, if you explain you're new, some people will genuinely direct you to Classic. Now what does Town of Salem 2 have? It has a guide! Hidden in the settings menu. Where you aren't going to find it unless you know where to look. And it might be a little bit out of date, especially with UI changes that move things, like your world placement around.
Game of Town of Salem, you can click one of the various different roles here on the left. We got Classic Mode, Custom Mode, Four Horsemen Mode, All Any, Dracula's Palace, and Wandering Souls.
But don't worry guys, we have Classic Mode in Town of Salem 2 as well, and it's great for new players. And town elders can come in and help any newbies learn the ropes. I'm sure this will be a great environment. Yeah, most of the time, the mode is dead. Well, any mode from All Any is mostly dead. How many new players have decided the game as a whole is dead because they think there's no activity? They think the only way to get a game going is to organize one with your friends, because they hop into Classic and they don't see anything. But let's say they poke around and do decide to join All Any, the only active game mode. Even if they make it clear they're a new player, very often the only advice you get is, if you don't understand something, is to look it up on the wiki. Like, this isn't Terraria. You shouldn't have to look up everything. And sometimes the wiki doesn't contain everything you need to know. For the longest time, the old version of Spy didn't have every message spelled out. And besides, sometimes the things it recommends are just horrifically outdated. Do not do this ever. The only other piece of advice that people recommend is to look up tutorial videos. Hello. Beneath all the sludge, there are some genuinely insightful videos for learning the game. But it shouldn't take the community to do this. I'd rather Town of Salem 2 came equipped with something that teaches the players what to do, because it is so overwhelming the first time you play it, especially on mobile. Like, why can I not see chat and my will at the same time? Oh man, this is impossible. I don't even want to imagine what it's going to be like on console when those players arrive. I remember how painful it was to play with console players when I played. This is a problem that has to be addressed because if we look at the player numbers of both games on Steam,
Life is pain!
Player retention has been a real problem that other social deduction games kind of struggle with. A lot of the time in Town of Salem 1, you'll see more of the message, I haven't played this game in years. I decided to check it out again, more than you see, I'm new. Since, how are they going to find it? So what can we do? Well, for the people watching who do play these games a lot, remember to be kind. There's nothing wrong with getting angry at a video game, but don't take your frustrations out on a new player. You don't want to discourage them. Also, Digital Banditos, maybe make a tutorial, like the one that never got finished. I remember Among Us had a single player mode, so that new players could learn how to do tasks and fake tasks and learn how imposters do their abilities. Maybe a single player mode against bots to be available is something they could make. Just maybe. Also, the list of rules should not just be on the main website. People need to understand what is and isn't reportable. If new players keep getting told they're getting reported despite genuinely just it being a case of growing pains, that'll just discourage them from picking the game up. Also, we need Classic to be populated. I mean, it's not just Classic. We need a system that funnels players into more than one game mode. If not, it'll be a slow, painful death for Town of Salem. I hope you guys enjoyed. This video was a lot different, but if you want to see more like this, give it a like and I'll see what I can do. I'm sure gameplay videos will be back soon. Bye-bye.